Welcome to a new time. Welcome to a new era.
This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE.
Feel the wrath of the pythons. You shall feel the wrath of Hulkamania. This is where the power lies.
And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
I got a 66 and 2/3 chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me and he's not even going to try.
It's time to step into the squared circle and get it done.
Welcome everyone to Legends and Champions for this week. My name is Andy Evans, coming to you from the United Kingdom on the last week of the Royal Rumble coverage. I have loved the Royal Rumble, but this is the last one. We won't be touching until 2026. I hope you've enjoyed all of the Royal Rumble coverage that we have done for you over the past month. Big shout out to Joe Aguinaldo, who joined me last week for the 1992 discussion of the Royal Rumble, and to Stephen Bennett, who joined me for that super show 93, 94 and 95. Well, what's coming up this week? Well, we're going to be finishing off the Royal Rumble by talking about the event that took place 20 years ago. And that is the 2005 Royal Rumble, the West Side Story one. We're going to be talking more about that. We're going to be looking at who won the Royal Rumble and how that impacted WrestleMania 21 that took place in April of that year. We're also going to be joined later on by another guest. More on that later. And I'll be telling you what we're going to be talking about next week, which is not Royal Rumble related. I'm going to give you a preview so far as we're taping this about who I think is going to win the WWE Royal Rumble. Plus, we're going to be giving you some news about what's happening in the run-up to WrestleMania. So it's all happening. But before we do that, it's been away for a couple of weeks. It's time for this.
You'll make it sweet. You'll make it short. It's time for Andy's Weather Report. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. Always has to be on this show. Every week, the weather report. Not much to report, really, except for the fact it's really cold. And we're in for another snap, another cold snap. Temperatures have gone down to -2 here in the United Kingdom. I'm currently in Reading, which is up the southeast of the country, so not too far away from London. And it's very cold. So don't come to the UK in the winter. It's absolutely awful. Now, how have you all been over January? Might have noticed last week that we had 2 shows released, one on Tuesday and one on Thursday. Thanks to Mike for that. There was a bit of mixed communication by myself and Mike, and I ended up recording a show for the week that we weren't doing a show. So we had to bring it all back together again. So a massive thank you to Mike for releasing both shows last week. But you had double the Legends content. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed them. They were a fantastic show to put on. Right, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking all about the 2005 WWE Royal Rumble. See you after this.
Hey, yo, how many of you here came to listen to your same generic wrestling podcast? Or how many of you came to listen to the alternate commentary table every single Saturday?
You're going to get our perspective of what the real fans of wrestling think, and no one does it like us.
Subscribe and stream to the McGuire on Wrestling podcast feed anywhere where you're streaming your podcasts. Survey says one more for the Greek guys.
Chair shot. I really think I need some new theme music. I haven't decided yet. I've been thinking about a revamp of the intro. I've already done a revamp of the logo, if you haven't noticed. But I am debating a revamp of the music. So if you've got any suggestions what you think we should do, let me know at Celebrate Wrestling, the Facebook group. Just search for Celebrate Wrestling on Facebook.com. Don't forget, if you want to listen to the alternate commentary table, who you just heard the promo for there, or you want to listen to Mike McGuire every Sunday at McGuire on Wrestling, then again, head out to Celebrate Wrestling on all main podcast providers and hit that follow or subscribe button. That way, you will get all of the latest shows, including me, right here each and every week, exclusively on podcast. And if that was not enough, you will get McGuire on Wrestling a day earlier than it would air on Canadian FM. So that is well worth subscribing for, and there's been some cracking shows since we've come back in 2025 from the guys at the ACT, from Mitch and Dimitri. It's a little bit sour over the holiday hullabaloo, but I think they're getting over it now. Mike has been on fire with Dave Meltzer talking all about what has been happening in the world of professional wrestling. And by God, we're only coming up to the end of the first month of 2025. And so much has already happened, including some trials and tribulations in AEW, TNA and WWE setting course to take over the wrestling world, and the announcement of NXT Evolve. All of that has been talked about on Celebrate Wrestling. And you can be a part of it just by subscribing to the podcast feed or subscribing and following us on Facebook at Celebrate Wrestling, where you can join in with some great fans, some great conversations. It's really down to earth. It's one of the best communities on FB. So join it. All right, let's get to it now. Let's talk about the 2005 Royal Rumble. It took place on January the 30th, 2005 in Fresno, California. It took part at the Safe Mart Center at Fresno State. The attendance was 12,000, and it was a split brand pay-per-view featuring superstars from Raw and superstars from SmackDown. The tagline, as we have become accustomed to, was every man for himself. This one, however, was all the rumbling minus the dancing and the singing. They were parodying West Side Story. It was all because we were leading up to WrestleMania 21, where WrestleMania went Hollywood, and I can guarantee you right now that we will be talking about WrestleMania 21 in a couple of weeks' time. Now, what makes this one interesting? Well, this is a Rumble match. No, it doesn't. It took part in Fresno, California, very similar to the 1993 Royal Rumble. And as per that year and every year thereafter, the winner of the Royal Rumble match would go on to challenge whichever brand's champion they wanted to face at WrestleMania 21. That could either be the World Heavyweight Champion on Raw or the WWE Champion on SmackDown. You know what I said there? I said WWE Champion, not WWE Universal Champion, not WWE Undisputed Universal Champion, not WWE World Heavyweight Undisputed Universal Multi-Generational Multiverse Champion, WWE Champion. It was so much better. But yes, it didn't happen. And it's changed. And Cody Rhodes, why have you not changed it back to the WWE title? I don't know. The 2005 Rumble was the 18th annual Royal Rumble pay-per-view after it kicked off in 1988. Now, this one was quite interesting because, like we said, this was a split brand pay-per-view featuring superstars from Raw and superstars from SmackDown. It was all about brand warfare. Which brand was going to come out on top? Which company, which brand, would Raw or would SmackDown win the Royal Rumble? And that was featured throughout this pay-per-view with some great skits featuring Eric Bischoff and Teddy Long. But ultimately, it was also about Latino Heat, Eddie Guerrero, and the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, who really stole the show with Latino Heat lying, cheating, and stealing his way to number 30, as we would find out, in the Royal Rumble. And whether or not you love Ric Flair or not, there was some great, some great selling, some great character acting by the Nature Boy. But the pay-per-view was really headlined by 3, maybe 4 main feuds. The main feud heading into the Rumble on Raw was between Triple H and the legend killer Randy Orton for the World Heavyweight Championship. And this started back on August the 16th during an episode of Monday Night Raw. Because if you remember back to that point, you will know that the legend killer was a member of Evolution, the youngest WWE champion in history. and he was unceremoniously kicked out of the group after Batista did the thumb down. From that point on, him and Triple H went into a historic feud. At WWE Unforgiven of that year, Triple H defeated Randy Orton to become the World Heavyweight Champion after receiving interference from fellow Evolution members, the Animal Batista and the Nature Boy Ric Flair. A couple of months later, at the Survivor Series, it was Team Orton that was led, of course, by Randy Orton, joined by Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, and Maven. Maven! The Tough Enough winner. Maven! Really? Maven. We will talk about Maven at some point, because I really want to get Maven Hoffman onto this show, because he is doing great things on that YouTube channel. So we need to get him on. They defeated Team Triple H, which was the team of Triple H, the Animal Batista, the Rated R Superstar, Edge, and Gene Snitsky. Yeah. Right. Okay. There we go. Gene Snitsky, headlining a pay-per-view. Whoever thought that was going to happen? At New Year's Revolution of this year, Triple H won an Elimination Chamber match. It didn't have its own pay-per-view to win the vacant World Heavyweight Championship by eliminating Orton, again following interference from Batista and Ric Flair. This all led us to the Royal Rumble and the main event, where we found out during the event that Evolution were banned from ringside. It would be 1-on-1. Triple H versus Randy Orton. More on that in just a second. Now, flipping over to SmackDown. The main feud at this time was between then WWE Champion and the returning John Bradshaw Layfield facing off against the Big Show and Kurt Angle, the All-American Olympic gold medalist and WWE Hall of Famer. And this was for the WWE Championship. On the December 16th episode of Friday Night SmackDown, Kurt Angle challenged JBL to a match for the WWE Championship. At this point, Stable Warfare was running rampant? I sound like Bugs Bunny or Elmer Fudd. Was running rampant in the WWE because JBL had the cabinet, Orlando Jordan and Doug and Danny Basham. Now they interfered, they attacked Angle, and they caused that match to end due to a disqualification. So how did the Big Show get involved? Well, Angle kept being beaten down. The Big Show came out and made the save. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and Theodore R. Long didn't make a tag team match player. He made a triple threat match for the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble. Another feud heading into the event from the SmackDown brand was between the Phenom, The Undertaker, and Heidenreich. Now, this one was due to a lot of things, but we try not to talk about it because it had Heidenreich in it. At Armageddon, Heidenreich cost The Undertaker a shot at the WWE Championship when he faced off against JBL after interfering in a fatal four-way that also involved the five-time, I think that was 5 times, WCW champion Booker T and Eddie Guerrero, allowing JBL to pin Booker to retain. At that point, it was SmackDown manager Teddy Long allowed The Undertaker to name the stipulation against Heidenreich at the Royal Rumble. And as Heidenreich was obviously afraid of caskets, what did we have? Almost 21 years following the 1994 Royal Rumble, we had a casket match. The next feud to take place on Raw, the preliminary feud, was between the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and the Rated R Superstar. This actually kicked off the pay-per-view, and what a way to start. Now, if we look back at history, this feud actually started back at Taboo Tuesday, available to watch right now on Netflix in Canada and international markets, when Michaels was in the public vote, which wasn't rigged at all, was voted over Edge and Chris Benoit to face the Game Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. Edge and Benoit were put into a World Tag Team Championship match against La Resistance. And it was during this match that Edge abandoned the Canadian crippler Chris Benoit. He, however, eventually won the match and instead interfered in the World Heavyweight Championship, the Rated R Superstar, costing Michaels the title. At New Year's Revolution in January the following year, Edge also competed in the Elimination Chamber match, the same one that we referenced earlier on with the Game Triple H for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship, with guess who as the special guest referee? That's right, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. And during this match, Edge accidentally speared the Heartbreak Kid, resulting in Michaels doing sweet chin music, and he would then be eliminated, Edge, by the Canadian superstar, the Ayatollah of rock and roller, Chris Jericho. And on the January 10th episode of Monday Night Raw, a confrontation between Edge and Shawn Michaels ended in a brawl around the arena. The match was then booked by Eazy-E Eric Bischoff to take place at the 2005 Royal Rumble. So there's your background. That brings us... Actually, do you know what? No, it doesn't bring us. Because for the first time in many a year, there were qualifying matches for people to be in the Royal Rumble match. I'm going to give you some of those results right now. At a SmackDown house show on January 9th, Booker T and Charlie Haas defeated Luther Reigns and Mark Jindrak. Shelton Benjamin defeated Maven on an episode of Raw on January the 10th. Edge defeated Rhino on that same episode of Raw. Just a few days later, Scotty 2 Hotty defeated Akio on SmackDown, and on the same show, John Cena defeated Rene Dupree and Rey Mysterio defeated Chavo Guerrero. Moving over to Monday Night Raw, we had 4 qualifiers. We had Viscera defeat Tajiri in a Battle Royal. Batista defeated Rob Conway and Sylvain Grenier in a handicap match. Muhammad Hassan defeated Val Venus. And we had Kane go over Gene Snitsky. And Maven, how did he get a second qualifier? I can't remember that. I need to look into this. How did Maven get 2 qualifiers? I don't know. But Maven in a triple threat match. And the final qualifier was on SmackDown, which was taped on the 25th of January, where Paul London defeated Funaki, Shannon Moore, and Spike Dudley. Indeed. In a fatal 4-way match. So now we've arrived at the 2005 WWE Royal Rumble. Your commentators, again, we've got this split brand. I love this. It was the only time I find that the brand split actually worked. On Raw, it was headed up by Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler. And on SmackDown, it was Michael Cole and the Human Suplex Machine. The Human Suplex Machine, Taz. And for the Royal Rumble match, we went for a very unique commentary team. We're all expecting Michael Cole these days to call the Royal Rumble, and a cracking job he does too. However, back in 2005, the commentary team for the Royal Rumble was one from Raw, good old JR, and one from SmackDown, Taz. And they did an absolutely cracking job. Ring announcers, we also had 2 ring announcers for each of the individual match, as was customary during that time. Tony Chimmel for SmackDown, and the legendary Howard Finkel was not only the Raw ring announcer, but he was the Rumble announcer as well. Referees, Mike Chioda, Jack Doan, and Earl Hebner, and Chad Patton were all from Raw. Brian Hebner, Jimmy Corderas, Nick Patrick, and Charles Robinson, Little Nate, who still looks like Little Nate, were your referees for SmackDown. And of course you had Eric Bischoff and Theodore Long, the 2 general managers from Raw and SmackDown. It was such a different time here. You know, it's funny because, you know, when I watched the 2005 Royal Rumble, and bear in mind, I haven't watched this one for a long time. I don't often go back and look at some of the early 2000 content. Not because it's not good, but because I'm really a 90s child, right? You know, I remember more about the 90s product than I do about the early 2000s. And part of that was because there was so much out there. You know, if you think about where we were at this time in professional wrestling, you had Raw, you had SmackDown, you had TNA, you had Ring of Honor. There was a lot of content to try and, you know, watch. I mean, there's more now, obviously. There's lots more content now than what there was back then. But it was difficult to keep up with it at that point. And, you know, I didn't watch Raw religiously. I didn't watch SmackDown religiously. I mean, I caught up. And there's things about this pay-per-view that I genuinely forgot, including how good this first match was between Edge and Shawn Michaels. A very young Adam Copeland. Now, bear in mind that Copeland had been in the WWE since around 1997, 1998, when he came in as part of the Brood with Gangrel. Then, of course, he was managed by Terry Runnels, what is wrong with me today? Managed by Michael P.S. Hayes, and then he went on his own. And we've just had this whole Edge and Christian 5-second pose. He's now on his own. The Rated R Superstar is really doing, I guess, what you would call a Shawn Michaels. He's kind of stepped out of that tag team remit. He's metamorphosized himself. He's turned himself into something completely different. And he's hanging with the Hall of Famer, who wasn't a Hall of Famer. He is hanging with Shawn Michaels 3 years back following that return in 2002, and arguably at the top of his game. I mean, Shawn Michaels always was a legend. We know that. But from that period between 2002 to up to when he retired, you couldn't fault Michaels. Michaels was 5-star every match, and this match was no different. But actually, what I can't say with this one is that Michaels carried it, because this was even. Edge, you know, was mocking Michaels. He performed some of those signature taunts. He gained the advantage with an Edge-o-matic on the floor. He performed a spear. Michaels sold it so beautifully. Michaels delivered a diving elbow drop, that signature move that he's modeled after the Macho Man Randy Savage. Edge countered sweet chin music. Not many people did this at the time with electric chair drop. He applied the educator on Michaels. Michaels broke the hold, got the roll up. But it was actually Michaels pinning. It was Edge, pinning Michaels with a schoolboy roll up. Not a spear. A schoolboy roll up. You wouldn't know it now. It was an amazing opening match, and it kind of set the scene for what was going to happen going through the pay-per-view. Until the second match. First match, 10 out of 10. Second match was the casket match between The Undertaker and Heidenreich. And it did go back and forth. Now, bear in mind, Heidenreich had, kidnapped Michael Cole and recited poetry to him at this point. Heidenreich was not the best of workers, right? We know that. John Heidenreich, bless him, not the best. Wouldn't really say he was at the level of The Undertaker. And if you were expecting a classic like the 1994 Royal Rumble, you didn't get it. Snitsky got involved. Kane was involved. The end occurred when The Undertaker executed a chokeslam, then a tombstone pile driver, and put Heidenreich in the casket to win the match. Next up was the triple threat match for the WWE Championship. John Bradshaw Layfield defending against the Big Show and Kurt Angle. And as you would expect from this, it was 5-star. In fact, I challenge anyone to name me a bad Kurt Angle match. This wasn't a classic, right? It wasn't catch as catch can. It wasn't technically perfect. It didn't have the moves that you would expect. But what it did was it portrayed JBL in the way it should have done. As a sneaky, cheating, champion who relies on outside interference from the cabinet. He relied on Jordan. He relied on Mark Jindrak. He relied on Luther Reigns. He relied on Doug and Danny Basham. The finish came as JBL executed a clothesline from hell on Angle to retain the title. But it's when we went backstage, when we had the promo between Teddy Long and JBL announcing the next championship match that he would be challenging in would be against the Big Show. And we're going to give you more on that in just a second. So we're going to come back to that. Let's go to the main event. Triple H, Randy Orton, World Heavyweight Championship. As I said earlier in the night, Raw General Manager decreed that Evolution were barred from ringside. And this had everything. This young up-and-comer, Randy Orton, the prodigy, the third-generation WWE superstar, hanging with the Hall of Famer, the Game, Triple H. Trumpet Hunter kept the advantage throughout the match. He targeted Orton's left knee. Orton put him into a broadcast table. He kept the advantage. He missed a DDT, and Triple H knocked Orton and the referee down with a clothesline, tried to hit Orton with the sledgehammer. He performed another clothesline and a pedigree to retain the championship. What would happen? Let's talk about it in just a second after the Royal Rumble match. There was dissension occurring in Evolution. There was dissension occurring between the Animal Batista and the Game Triple H. And that would come to fruition during the Royal Rumble. Because the main event was the Royal Rumble match. And before the match even took place, not only did we have the interactions between Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero and the Nature Boy Ric Flair, but we also had Kurt Angle, fresh off the loss for the WWE Championship, attacking Nunzio backstage from the FBI and taking his number. The participants were divided into their respective brands, and they fought against each other, working to eliminate amongst those Muhammad Hassan, who was the 13th entrant. Scotty 2 Hotty, who was the 15th entrant, was attacked by Hassan during his entrance, and he actually never made it into the Royal Rumble match. Angle was the 20th entrant. He was dominated upon until Shawn Michaels eliminated him. But in what would set up one of the most iconic feuds in recent memory between Shawn Michaels and the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, he would come back to eliminate Shawn Michaels and attack him. The final four participants in the 2005 Royal Rumble were the Animal Batista, John Cena, the Rated R Superstar, and Rey Mysterio. But in a replay from the 1994 Royal Rumble, it came down to two superstars, the Animal Batista and John Cena. Both men going back and forth, and both men going over the top rope, and both feet touching the floor at the same time. Now, unlike the 1994 edition of the Royal Rumble, what happened was the fact that you had the Raw official saying that Batista won, you had the SmackDown official, because John Cena was on SmackDown, saying that John Cena had won. This was going back and forth. Nobody knew what was going on. Howard Finkel didn't know what was going on. The announcers didn't know what was going on. And then it happened. Vincent Kennedy McMahon strutted down to ringside, climbed into the ring, and popped the quad. And the iconic scene is Vince McMahon literally sat on his backside at ringside in the ring, giving the verbal diarrhea and restarting the Royal Rumble. So for the first time ever, a Rumble was restarted with the final two participants. And it came up that the Animal Batista eliminated John Cena following a spinebuster to not only win the 2005 Royal Rumble, but would be going on to headline WrestleMania 21 against the champion of his choosing. So who would he face? Would it be the game Triple H, or would it be JBL? Raw or SmackDown? Well, it almost was JBL. Because Triple H, obviously not wanting to face the Animal in a one-on-one match because he knew his title would be at risk, devised a scheme where it would make it look like Batista had been run over by JBL's limousine. That would then make Batista want to challenge JBL for the World Heavyweight Championship. This, however, is WWE. Things don't go to plan. So what happened? Batista found out about the plan and instead challenged Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 21. John Cena. What happened to the runner-up? What happened to the man who didn't win the Royal Rumble? Well, he went on to participate in a tournament to crown a number one contender for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 21, which he won. The tournament concluded in a one-on-one match at No Way Out between him and the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. Following that win, he began an angle with JBL, which ultimately led to the title match at WrestleMania 21, and we're not talking about it now. We will talk about it in a few weeks' time. Following the Royal Rumble, the Legend Killer Randy Orton and Kurt Angle began feuding with The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels respectively. The Big Show faced JBL in the first ever, as we said, barbed wire steel cage match for the championship at No Way Out, which ultimately JBL won and retained the championship. As well as this, Randy Orton feuded briefly, although, with Christian before moving on to The Undertaker. That spanned in total 9 months. And the Big Show, well, less said about the Big Show, the better. And in 2005, in June of that year, there was a draft. And the draft lottery saw the championships flip. The World Heavyweight Championship went to SmackDown, and the WWE title went to Monday Night Raw. So all in all, where does this one stand? Well, you've got to think about the fact that actually we're in a completely different era now to what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. As I said, we're no longer in the 90s. We're in the early 2000s. The product is very, very different. The presentation is very, very different. The writing is very different. And although this is a good, in a way, Royal Rumble event, in my mind, it doesn't fit the same character. It doesn't have the same appeal. It doesn't have that same love that the early 90s events had. It's not bad, but you could see a decline in the product, which ultimately we would see over the next few years. Now, one of the things that we have talked about a lot over the last couple of weeks is the length of the Royal Rumble. This one lasted 51 minutes and 27 seconds. The longest undercard match was between Triple H and Randy Orton for 21 minutes, closely followed by The Undertaker and Heidenreich. That went for 13. Edge and Shawn Michaels went to 18. And JBL, The Big Show, and Kurt Angle went for 12 minutes. And I'm just having a look to see who got the most eliminations. The person who got the most eliminations in the Royal Rumble was the Animal Batista, who came in at number 28 with 6 eliminations, would ultimately go on to win the thing. All right, that's it for this set of the show. We're going to go for a quick commercial break. When we come back, more Legends and Champions. I will see you after. back to Legends and Champions. Andy is back, and I have another guest with me. It's another super show, right? So far, 2005 Royal Rumble. Coming up, I've got another guest with an exclusive. You can't wait for this one. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. Well, maybe I'll tell you in a second. But joining me on the line right now, talking something completely different to the Royal Rumble, is longtime friend of the show, and that sounded like Terry Wogan for anybody in the UK who's listening to that. Longtime friend of the show. It's Shane Poole. Shane, welcome. How you doing, my old friend?
I'm doing very, very well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. Really good. Welcome to Legends. Your first time on this incarnation of Legends and Champions. You were around when we first did, when Lee and I first did the show back quite a few years ago now. Now, Shane approached me the other day, and we were talking, and he said, "You know what? Would love you. I would love you. I'm going Bristolian now. I don't know what's going on. I would love you to talk about a certain topic." And I was like, "Yeah, great, fine. What's the topic?" And we went back and forward, and the topic was memories of collecting wrestling VHSs and DVDs. And I kind of sat there and went, "Do you know what? This is a really good idea, because we've done a lot of Royal Rumbles over the past month. I think we're on Royal Rumble number 6 tonight, not counting the preview for the Royal Rumble 2025. So this seemed like a nice bit of a diversion from talking about Royal Rumble." And Shane, you were on to talk about memories of collecting wrestling videos and DVDs. So kick off. What is it about this that resonates with you so much?
Oh, I just loved collecting physical media. I can actually tell you the story of the very first wrestling VHS. It was WrestleMania 7. I'm sure you remember Woolworths.
Oh God, yeah, Woolworths. For those of you who are listening in outside of the UK, Woolworths was a rather unique shop in our high street. It had everything. It was kind of like a superstore that wasn't a superstore. It was a food store that wasn't a food store. Imagine a very early version of Walmart. But one of the things it did have was the pick and mix suites. So you could walk in as a kid, and they had the big counters with the bags and the pick and mix, and you just literally shoved them in a bag, had them weighed, walked out, and that was it. In a time where you could get a decent bag for like 99 pence, which I think is not even $1 in the States. But anyway, I digress. Carry on.
When you bought a video VHS, if you remember those things, we're getting old, Andy.
We are.
About VHS. You grab the VHS case, you would take it to the counter, they would go behind the back and get the actual physical VHS, put it in the case, and give it to you, and then you pay for it, and you go off. My local Woolworths, and I'm sure other Woolworths did it as well, every 6 months to a year, they would do a stock check, and all the VHSs they couldn't find the case for, they would put on a 80% sale.
Right. Okay.
So my WrestleMania 7, which was what? I must have bought it in '93. Was $1.99 in a bargain bin.
I mean, $1.99 is a bargain for WrestleMania 7. If you want to quote Regis Philbin, because it's really difficult when you're trying to do this type of show, right? Because when we're talking about currency and we're talking about money, obviously a lot of our listeners are in North America, they're in Canada, they're also in Europe. Over here in the UK, we obviously use pound sterling, which means that it came into about £14.99, which if you did the conversion back in 1993, I don't even want to work it out, but it would most likely now be around, I guess, around 30 quid roughly. If you look at inflation and where we are in terms of inflation, that would be around £30 now. So almost double the retail price of that VHS. So to get it for $1.99, and
I still have it.
You still have it? Wow, I haven't got any of mine anymore.
I have it over there. So I have it over there in the corner. I have a small stack of VHS, wrestling VHSs on the corner of my room over there.
Wow.
I've still got a VHS player downstairs connected to my main TV in the living room.
I mean, days of the VH. I mean, I took my daughter who's 6, and we went around the charity shops in Weymouth, and which is my hometown here in the UK, and I showed her a VHS, and I said to her, "This is what Daddy used to watch movies on," and she looked at me and she went, "What is it?"
Oh my God.
And I explained to her that unlike, now where you've got WWE classic content on Netflix, I had to get it in. I haven't done it this week. You didn't have the option to press the button and it suddenly appeared. You had to watch the tape, fast forward it. Then at the end of it, you had to rewind the tape so you could watch it back from the beginning and the next one. And her jaw dropped. And this shop assistant in this charity shop walked around and just went, "Yeah, it was the good old days." I'm sat there thinking, no, it wasn't. It was traumatic, really, because I remember Lee, who I used to do TSC with back in the day, and the amount of times that he and I would watch a wrestling pay-per-view, whether that was WWF or WCW back in the day that you could get in the co-op, and then the tape would come out of the VHS, and you had to get a pencil and put it in the little hole and try and screw it back in again so the tape would and it was never the same. And then the tracking would go and you had to adjust it. Oh, the good old days, pre-media.
Yes,
Now my first VHS, as we're talking about that, my first wrestling event that I ever saw was WrestleMania 3 from the Pontiac Silverdome in March of 1987. But the first VHS I ever had, I was actually lent it by a family friend, and it was the Best of the British Bulldogs, one of those old WWF Superstar series. It ran for about 45 minutes, and it was, the classic 1980s one with the white box. And I remember watching that and kind of going, "Oh, this is really good." Now I'd seen WrestleMania, but only seen highlights of it. And then watched British Bulldog. But the first one that I went out and bought, again, was from Woolies, was from Woolworths, just like you. And it was WrestleMania 4, which was a double VHS, right?
I bet you bought it because it was a double VHS, not realizing how rubbish the event was.
Oh, the event was brilliant. It's I love WrestleMania 4.
Oh, okay.
I love WrestleMania 4. But it was a double video cassette, and each video cassette ran for about 2 hours, I think it was. And it cost 20 quid. And I remember buying it. I went in with my pocket money and was like, "I want to buy this video." And I bought this video and got home and hadn't checked it. Well, my dad hadn't checked it. And it only had one VHS in it.
Oh, no. Which part?
Part 2. So it didn't even have part 1.
Oh no!
So we had to get back in the car, drive back, and get, which was easier said than done back in the day, and get that second video. But you had like a youngster walking in going, "I want to use my pocket money," get it, and got home, didn't check it. So from that point on, always checked the VHS.
Oh wow, yeah. Oh wow, because my next tape after that was War Tour 89-90.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Which was on the original WWE network.
Mm-hmm.
Features matches like Ultimate Warrior Ted DiBiase from the Egg Dome.
Yes.
Tokyo, Japan. The Rockers versus the Fabulous Rougeau brothers from France.
Yeah. It was really weird, wasn't it, watching those? Because that when a lot of these special VHS tapes or programs that they did, especially when they came on the network, and you realized that they were house show matches. They were dark show matches, dark events. And I had one which was the mega matches, and it was released in the summer, I want to say 1991. And it was hosted by Sean Mooney. And gradually throughout the tape, they did this skit where his outfit, his suit was getting bigger. So by the last match, he was completely dwarfed by this suit, which you think now and go, that's shocking. But actually, it was quite funny to watch it. But the big takeaways...
I was just watching Invasion 92 just the other day. because that's actually on the WWE YouTube channel.
Yes, on WWE Vault. So if you want a YouTube version of the network, check out WWE Vault.
Yeah, but they did a Star Trek ripoff.
Did they? I never knew that.
Yeah, there's a Star Trek. So you've got Lord Alfred Hayes doing an absolutely awful Scotty impression, doing a Scottish accent.
Lord Alfred Hayes.
Awful, absolutely awful.
Well, check it out on WWE Vault if you want to see that. But after Shane's explanation, I don't think we will. Collecting video. I mean, you are bringing this back. You are an aficionado of collection. You're a pop culture collector. You collect everything from. I can see we're filming this at the moment on Zoom. And I can see in the back, you've got things like the Bionic Man, you've got NCIS, all that type of thing. You are a collector of pop culture. What's it like for you as a collector to move away from the hard media onto streaming? Because, you can't get them anymore, really. If you go to CEX or, bargain shops, they're like £1. Why do you think we've done it? Do you think there's ever going to be a case for it to come back into some sort of hard media? Definitely. Because I mean, as I look behind here, actually, I don't actually have anything on me. It's actually over there on my shelf. I've got all the Doctor Who Blu-rays. Yeah,
they've got hours upon hours of documentaries, commentaries, studio footage. If I just look at one random one over there, one has about 50 hours just of extra stuff which you're not going to get on streaming. And recently, all the Doctor Who, which was on ITV on BritBox, is now gone off BritBox.
Yeah, but it's all moved on to iPlayer, which is the streaming service.
Not all of it.
Okay.
Not all of it.
I guess that...
the Unearthly Child, which is the first episode of Doctor Who, the estate won't give BBC the rights for streaming.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I guess that is the risk with digital media, isn't it? Because, we see it all the time in terms of the fact that the content can disappear and also the content might not be uploaded. The big argument that we've had recently with a lot of fans is about the closure of the WWE network and the loss of WCW, ECW, SMW, AWA, that Evolve, the classical content and a lot of the home video classics that we're talking about now. I
mean, taking it back to for wrestling and the wrestling VHSs.
Yeah.
In the UK, from WrestleMania 9 all the way through to WrestleMania 14, most of our VHSs had the Countdown show attached or the Free For attached.
They did,
which the US version did not get.
The UK, well, our distributor that we had in the UK was called Silvervision, which was the first one that took over before Fremantle. Silvervision, in fact, I'm going to come in this segment. If you're listening to this, you already know I've done it, but Shane doesn't because I'm talking about it and I haven't edited it yet. I'm going to come in with the Silvervision music because the Silvervision music was iconic. For any of us UK fans, it was iconic. And when you heard that, it got you into the mood. Now, the problem with what Shane says about the preview shows and the countdown shows going onto the VHSs is that you couldn't get through it quick enough. You had to sit there with the fast forward to try, you couldn't skip it. You had to fast forward it, which meant it took an extra, 25 minutes before you got to the main pay-per-view.
For me, whose parents could never ever afford Sky and could never afford, watching the weekly stuff, Mania, Raw, whatever, that was an absolute godsend for a person like me because, it would give me bring me up on all the history.
All the background. I mean, I get it. I think, we didn't have Sky when I was growing up. And, I think the preview shows were great. And I think the first time you watched them was brilliant. But unlike, when you move on to the DVDs and that type of media where you could watch it as an extra and then you didn't have to watch it again, that was that limitation of video. And as you got older and you got more used to the event, having to sit there and watch that preview show, I used to rewind it, work out work out exactly how long it would take to rewind it, to not have the preview show and to kick off directly at the beginning of the pay-per-view, right? And and that was a trick, and used to do that, and many an hour have been spent, watching the video cassettes. Now, I want to give you a story, all right? Because we're not gonna. This isn't gonna be a 30-minute segment. We're gonna talk about this and have a chat. I want to give you a story because a friend of mine, Dan Barnstall, who for some of you will know has been on the show before. Has been on TSC. He was on TWS, my previous show before this, and Dan is what you would call He's a collector. He's an aficionado of professional wrestling. And before the WWF network came out, Dan had every WWF, WCW, WWE, and TNA, ECW, and maybe some ROH release that had been released. And that went from VHS through to DVD through to Blu-ray. Now, you might think, okay, great, good for Dan, brilliant. They were in chronological order, in date order. And what I did once, twice, maybe 3 times, on my stag weekend, I was at Dan's. And we were at Dan's, and a group of us, including you, went through Dan's video collection and moved things around. But we didn't just move things around. We took tapes out and moved them around. Dan didn't speak to me for about a month. Love him to bits, but that was just the fun. But that's what you could do. I mean, it took up so much space in terms of that digital media. So, I mean, for me personally, I loved collecting it back in the day. I think I had a load of them. I must have had, every WrestleMania, every SummerSlam, every Royal Rumble, the UK Rampage 1991, which was one that never gets any love for any strange reason. We will cover that on this show, actually. Just decided. But for me personally, I think moving to this digital age, this streaming age, is much easier to watch the content. Like I'm in a hotel at the moment in Reading because I'm away at work, and I've got my iPad sat next to me, and I know that as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go in and sit in the chair and put the Royal Rumble on and watch it, getting ready for next week, or to catch up on last night's Monday Night Raw. So there are its benefits, but I can understand as a collector why you would want to have the physical copies. Is there anything that you're going to do a call to action now? Is there anything that you're specifically missing in your collection that you would like to kind of go, LAC listeners, help me. If you've got it, I'd like to take it off your hands.
Oh, you didn't tell me about this beforehand.
In fairness, we didn't talk about any of this beforehand. We didn't know where it was going to go. So,
that's a good point, well made. Nothing off the top of my head. The only thing, actually, and I was talking about this to a mutual friend of ours just yesterday, as a matter of fact. So let me just bring this up. We've just SummerSlam 1992.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I was just talking to Joe Algranado just yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was complaining that the DVD / Blu-ray that came out a couple of years ago from Fremantle was absolutely awful compared to the original VHS.
It missed a lot of stuff out. I got that. I got the Blu-ray copy. I actually got it for my wife got it me for my 40th, and I do agree with you. They cut a lot out. There wasn't as much on there as I would have expected it. And what I was disappointed about with the Blu-ray version specifically was they didn't upscale it. Was the VHS rip, and I would have hoped they would have upscaled it, which they didn't do. Neither did they do it on the WWE network, I might add.
Yeah. What really annoyed me about the DVD / Blu-ray is that on the original VHS, you had the 3 dark matches in their entirety on the VHS.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the DVD version, they put the primetime versions, which had commercial breaks in it.
Yeah, and I think they also did the American, because the American version didn't have the dark matches in. If I remember right, it went
No,
straight into
no, no.
the
Yeah,
fourth match. I mean, it's
yeah.
interesting when you look at the differences between global. So when you look at the differences between what we had over here in the UK and what
Mm,
North America had and what Canada had, because towards the end of the digital, towards the end of the physical media
mm,
run, obviously now it's all cancelled. Um,
mm,
we were the only territory that got Blu-rays.
mm. Well, you must remember. You must remember that in the US, the US never got a release of In Your House 3, In Your House 4, In Your House 19.
No, no, they didn't. We did,
Yeah.
which was fascinating because of the fact that they didn't get it. One of the things
Mm,
that just want to touch on very quickly, which I am so shocked at how much they've gone up in price, was a Silvervision release called the WWE Tag Classics. Now they were released on DVD, and what they did was they literally took two pay-per-views and put them on two separate DVDs in one pack. So, for example, they would do WrestleMania 7 and WrestleMania 8. So you would buy one DVD pack, two DVDs. And some of them are, no word of a lie, going on a popular auction site for over £200. The
mm,
UK Rampage 1991 and the UK Rampage 1992, both are terrible events. But for some reason, we love them over here, but they are absolutely god awful. Um,
mm,
I've seen that go on Tag Classic up to £500, right?
mm.
And that's because we can't get them anymore. They're all deleted. But the Tag Classics, which were released at the same time as the WWE WrestleMania Anthology, the box sets that they did from WrestleMania 1 through to WrestleMania 25, 24, 25, had the audio edits and the cuts.
Yeah.
And the Tag Classics didn't. They were the original masters put onto DVD, released in their entirety. They even had the scratch WWF logo. They weren't taken
Okay.
out. So they are the rarest of the rare. And if you can find one of those, especially the ones like the 91-92 Royal Rumble, the 92-93 Royal Rumble, SummerSlam 92-93, the Rampage 91-92, and WrestleMania 17-18, they are worth money. Absolutely worth money.
Oh, definitely. I'm just currently on a popular shop site. See, sex, and the cheapest one I can find is £22.
Just for anyone in North America who doesn't know what that is, it's called CEX, not sex. All right, the shop is called CEX.
Well, it's officially pronounced that.
Yeah, I know, but we don't call it that. We call it CEX.
Okay,
We're a
okay.
family. It's a family podcast feed. We call it CEX. Yeah, there is a secondhand site, a shop here in the UK called CEX, where you can go to. You can trade anything in. They give you cash or vouchers. They give you a god awful price, and then they sell it on for a very high markup. But they are 22 quid on that, or private sellers 500 quid. Shane, I'm going to start to wrap this up because we could talk for an extremely long time.
We could do
on home media. If you had to pick, forget WrestleMania 7 for the minute. If you had to pick your favorite release that you have in the collection, physical media, what would it be and why?
SummerSlam 1994.
Why?
Not because of the event or anything like that. Actually, it's because it's a great event. Don't get me wrong. It's more the memories of me actually buying it.
Okay.
It was actually I was 13 at the time when I bought it, and it was actually my first ever time I ever been to London with family.
Right.
And buying it there and having it, and it was me, my mother, my dad, my aunt, and we all went down there. And yeah, my first time ever been in London. Obviously, I've been to London many times since, but yeah, it was the first time I've ever been, and buying it there and brings back all sorts of memories.
And that is, just as we begin to wrap this up, that is a lovely story because it's one of those things that you forget with the home media content is the fact that, that physical it's a memento, isn't it? It is a memory in a box that you pick up. You know, like WrestleMania 4. I lost all of them. Well, I didn't lose all of mine. I sold them in a fit of stupidity because I was moving in with my now wife, and she told me I couldn't bring them with me. So they got sold to that CEX shop, and I did make about 300 quid out of them, which was, you know, quite nice. Did buy a games console. She wasn't happy with that, but that's a different story. But they have got memories, and just like when you look back at the story about WrestleMania 4 and your story about WrestleMania 7, and there's so many other ones, like the first one that my dad, who's now passed away, the first one that he and I actually sat down and watched together, you would think would be WrestleMania 4. It wasn't. It was actually SummerSlam 92. To go back to yours, to go back to bring that back around, which is why 92 means so much to me, because it's the one that my dad and I watched, and my dad's no longer here, and every time I watch it, it brings back memories of watching it with my dad. Just like watching the movie Schindler's List is memories of watching my dad, or the Star Trek episode called The Inner Light is memories of my dad, and all that type of thing. So you've got these memories relating to it. If you are a collector, Celebrate Wrestling followers, if you are a collector of digital media, I want to know what hard media, not digital media, because it's all on Netflix. Oh, by the way, you can watch WWE Classics on Netflix each and every week. If you are a collector of hard physical media, I want to see your collections. So pop it on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook group. Show the world what you have in terms of your wrestling media collection, your collection in general, because that's what this is all about. Celebrating the stories, celebrating wrestling, and celebrating each other's fandom. That's the rant over, really. Shane, thank you.
I would say can I just say one last point before?
Yeah.
The WrestleMania 7 VHS comes in, I believe, at around about 2 hours 50.
Yep.
The version of the network comes out at about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, what I have noticed with the Netflix is if you look at the events, they all seem to run for 2 hours and 49 minutes.
Yeah, no, on it's about 40 minutes more on the Netflix version. So what I'm going to do, when it comes to close to WrestleMania, is I'm going to get my old WrestleMania 7 VHS out,
right,
and actually write down all the edits.
Oh, nice! Pop it on the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Pop it on the Facebook group. Let us see the differences. Shane, always a pleasure to have you on the show and to speak to you about something that you are so passionate about, which obviously is this hard media. Why am I calling it digital media? I've got no idea. This hard media. We're going to go to break. When we come back, this is it. I am going to come back with another guest with an exclusive for you. This is a good one. Looking forward to this. And it's about something we've already spoken about. We're going to go to break. When we come back, I'll see you in just a sec with more of Legends after this. Welcome back to Legends. Andy here as always. Joining me right now is another guest. You guys are getting lucky. That's 3 guests in 3 shows. Joe Aguinaldo, Stephanie Bennett, and now the head honcho here at Celebrate Wrestling, the man, the myth, the legend, McGuire on wrestling's home. Mike McGuire, how you doing, good sir?
I'm good, Andy. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. I am very good, thank you. Mike, it's always great having you here, and Happy New Year 2025. That is officially the last time that I am ever saying that this year until 2026. You're here because you've got something pretty exclusive for us here at Legends and Champions, haven't you?
Well, this is kind of fun. So on McGuire on Wrestling Show, which happens every Sunday, we're going to be doing a special episode about Sweet Daddy Siki, who passed away on New Year's Eve. And for those around the world that don't know anything about Sweet Daddy Siki, Great American-Canadian wrestler, very influential to especially black wrestlers in Canada and the United States. Really the first guy to get out there and challenge for the NWA Championship. As a black man, there was a ton of controversy around that, but you'll find that out in the special. But to help me out on this was a guy who is arguably Siki's biggest fan in the world, and that, of course, is Bret the Hitman Hart. So while talking to Bret about Siki, I said, hey, I got this guy, Andy, and he does a great show for us every week, and he's been covering the Royal Rumbles. And last week, he talked about Rumble 94. But can we talk a little bit more about the finish? So just for you now, and this was a ton of fun, and it's edited down a little bit because we're doing like screen shares and stuff, and we're actually watching the finish over and over a couple times here. Wow. But what I have for you now is Bret Hart walking us through the finish, that tie finish between him and Lex Luger. And I think what he has to say about it might surprise you, because he's very proud of this finish, but he also doesn't take as much credit for it as what maybe a lot of people want to give him. In fact, you'll hear that he says that without Lex, this couldn't have happened. So,
I mean, that says something, because, we said on the show last week, Lex's run in the WWF wasn't exactly stellar, but when you've got someone as good as the Hitman Bret Hart to kind of play off and the finish the way it happened, it is iconic, really.
Well, again, I want to save it for Bret, but I think that a lot of fans, myself included, we get a little biased when we like our technical wrestlers versus the, quote, body guys. But I think you'll hear from Bret here and talk about one of the best technical guys ever. He really shares the credit, and I don't want to spoil the whole thing right now, so I'll let Bret talk about it. But yeah, that's what's coming up for you here.
Well, we're going to throw to that in just a second. But before we go, Mike, this Saturday, obviously, is the Royal Rumble. We don't normally talk about current product here in the WWE, but if you had to pick a superstar now to win the Royal Rumble from who has been announced so far, who would it be?
Dominic Mysterio.
Yay! And then all you need is go.
I found, okay, so if people follow me on social media at McGuire Show, I've been posting a lot of stuff from me moving and finally settling after a few years of moving. And I found an old whiteboard I have, like a dry erase board, from 2013.
Wow.
And I used to have pay-per-view parties, and they would always have a theme. So it wasn't just watching the Royal Rumble. We did the regift Rumble. So you'd bring your regifting presents. We'd do like a gift exchange as well as watch the Royal Rumble. Other famous ones were like Survivor Series, and where every potluck item had to be a pie of some sort. Anyway, nevertheless, I found this board from 2013, and even back then, I've always stunk at predicting who's going to win what. So I feel safe with my Dominic Mysterio pick, only because I know that I don't expect to be right.
Well, you know what they say.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was Final Four. I'm not going to lie. For the men's Rumble, I wouldn't be surprised if he was Final Four, just because it would be so great.
Well, you know what they say. Anything can happen in the WWE, so it could be Dominic Mysterio challenging for the WWE Championship. Who knows?
Yeah. Who'd you pick?
It's tricky, because we're going to touch on it in the next segment, but if I have to put my money on where my mouth is, I've got to go with John Cena. I think that they're just building it up too much. It's got to be John Cena. Do I want him to win it? No. I don't. Well, I think whatever happens, he's going to get to WrestleMania. He's going to be facing for a championship at Mania. And bear in mind, we don't know the result of Saturday night's main event yet as we're taping this. I kind of want Jey Uso, if he doesn't win the world title, to win the Royal Rumble and then go to WrestleMania and headline it, because I think he is like the next era of professional wrestling. So I think he could do it and do a pretty good job.
That is a bold prediction. But it was funny. I was actually talking to somebody yesterday and said that I could see them giving it to Jay because of the monster push he's been getting. Do I think it's the right move? Yeah, but they're making money. So
hey, you never know. It could be Joe Hendry, the new TNA World Champion. He could win the Royal Rumble.
I will guarantee it will not be Joe Hendry. And I like Joe Hendry. But I will guarantee it will not. He might be one of the Final Four, though, if he's in the thing.
He might be. Who knows? He could be Nick Nemeth. Who knows? We're going to talk about it next. And of course, it's all going to be covered on Celebrate Wrestling over the weekend with ACT on Saturday leading in to the Royal Rumble. And of course, you and Mr. Meltzer on Sunday. And I'm sure with Joe doing the A-Boo talking about the 2005 Royal Rumble.
Or the 2025 Royal Rumble.
I don't know which one's going to be better, 2005 or 2025.
You know what? I like that idea. The day after the Royal Rumble this year, we're going to cover the 2005 edition. I like that a lot. This means I can work ahead.
Get your DeLorean out. Just listen to this show. We've just talked about it, and then just use that content. Sorted. There you go.
You're actually wearing a DeLorean time machine shirt as we talk about this, too.
I am. I'm a huge Back to the Future fan, which people might not know. I have seen all three films numerous times, and met Christopher Lloyd at Comic-Con in the UK, and had a handshake with him. And didn't meet Michael J. Fox, though. That was the most unfortunate thing. He was there, but the queue was too long, and I wasn't paying like £1,000 to go and meet Michael J. Fox. But I did.
How much it costs, really?
Yeah. To meet Michael J. Fox, to have a group shot with him, Christopher Lloyd, Leah, whatever her name is, the one who played the girlfriend,
Leah Thompson. Yeah,
that's it, Leah Thompson, and a picture of the DeLorean was something like £3,000. Oh my god! So it's like, no. My wife would have killed me if I'd done that.
I wouldn't pay that for a hologram of that.
Let's go to Bret Hart. Mike, thanks for joining us. We will see you every Sunday on McGuire on Wrestling right here at Celebrate Wrestling. Don't forget to click subscribe on all podcast providers and join the Facebook group. You can be a part of it. Mike, always a pleasure to speak to you. We're going to go to the legendary WWE Hall of Famer Bret the Hitman Hart in an exclusive conversation with Mike right here on Legends. We'll see you after this.
Well, thanks, Andy. And as promised, here to talk a little more about the finish from that Royal Rumble, which, you know, it sounds like I always feel like I'm kissing your ass when I say this stuff, Bret, but it really was my favorite Rumble finish ever because it was so cool, so unique, and so well done. But Bret the Hitman Hart is here to tell us all about the Royal Rumble 1994.
You know, that Rumble was, you know, you get talked to, like they tell you kind of what they want, and then you have to go out there and deliver. And I'll be honest, there's no way to practice. You can practice that a million times and then try to go out there and do it. And it's kind of hit or miss. But, you know, the truth is it was an exact tie. And that's impossible to practice or to get perfect every time, especially live. In fact,
did you guys ever practice it at all before you went into the ring?
We went in the ring and kind of sort of talked about how we could do it, you know, and that was it. We didn't even try to do it because it's like, there's no way to practice. Like there's no way to, like, you could do it a million times and still get it wrong. And so I always credit Lex a lot more than he doesn't get credit a lot of time for being a really good worker and a good athlete. But we talked about how we were going to go over, and he was the one that kind of said that he would kind of grab me at a certain point, and then we would just flip over. And when we thought about it, I just remember when I was falling in the air, I pulled my legs up as high as I could so that I wouldn't hit the ground first. And really, it was perfect. We did exactly the same time. In fact, if you ever watch it, they don't show a camera angle of us hitting the ground because they didn't think we hit the ground on time, like perfect.
Yeah.
It was the next day they go, you know what, it's perfect and we can show everybody. And so then they started showing a different camera angle where we actually hit the ground. But, you know, I just sort of plotted it out in my head that I would have to pull my feet up falling in the air, try to pull them up so that I'd avoid hitting the ground first. That was kind of thing. The last thing I want to do is hit the ground first.
Well, and it worked really well too, because I mean, and this was back when the pay-per-views had stories that would run through them. So you and Owen had already had the trouble before, right? And you know, he kicks your leg, and then there was a spot in the Rumble that the announcers sold as they thought that was going to be your spot, but then nobody came out. And so when you came out, you're limping, you're already hurt. So when you guys go over, to me, it was like, okay, well, his knees are bad, or, his leg is bad. So that's probably why he cinched up like that too. And like it all just made sense.
Well, I've always appreciated, and Lex always gives me credit for it, but I really think that Lex was the one that, it was the way he grabbed me and flipped us over.
I've got it here. I wonder if I can do a screen share. Can you see it?
I can see it, but I've already hit the ground.
Yeah, we'll go back here. So the final four, Bret Hart, Lex Luger, Shawn Michaels, and is that Samu or Fatu?
Didn't get a good enough look.
Vince just said Fatu, so
he was a great wrestler. I really loved working with him. Samu.
Yeah,
he was a really good worker. I never met a Samoan wrestler that wasn't a good athlete. Every one of them, they could swim, jump. They could do everything. They could drop kick. They were just super athletes.
Shawn and Fatu both go over. Bret Hart, Lex Luger, back to back. You see each other now, blow for blow.
Yeah, now I'm remembering it.
He's got you picked up.
Yeah.
There it is right there.
So if you watch that, Lex is the one that pulls me over. He grabs me really tight around the waist, and we start to go over. And it's hard to tell because I don't think there's a camera angle from that night. They don't show it because they were scared that it would show one of us hitting the ground first. But the fact is we did hit exactly the same time. And they showed it the next day on their TV.
So you got Earl Hebner and Joey Morella at ringside arguing about who went over first. And it was great because Lex had you in basically like a body slam position almost, like he was going to toss you over the rope that way, but then you guys fell over backwards.
Yeah, he picked me up like right over his head. He was such a strong guy, Lex. He just picked me right up, and then I kind of squirmed and got loose and pushed him against the ropes. And then he grabbed me around the waist, and when we flipped over, we both were like in midair, like going right over. And there's no way to time that. It's just. But the truth is, I'm sure they don't show it here because they didn't know. They were like that night. It was all live, and we were going to go off the air in a couple of seconds, and it was like they couldn't show who hit the ground first.
Yeah, and then Jack Tunney eventually comes out, and he's arguing with the referees, and there you are rallying for the crowd.
The thing about this match that I always said was it came down to it's a beauty contest. It was like I remember it's like who was more over, me or Lex? And I was much more over than Lex was, and I knew it. And Vince had said like both of you climb up one after another on the second rope and work the crowd. And basically I won because you could hear the crowd.
Okay, I got to ask you about this part right here because being a ring announcer and commentator, I always pay attention to this stuff. So Fink is here, Howard Finkel, and he's about to announce the winner of the 1994 Royal Rumble for like the fourth time, and he's about to do it. And he actually, before this time though, he actually stopped and winced and walked back over to Tunney like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And then he goes back and announces you both as winners. So you've both won at this point. And like you said, this is the time, I guess, where you take a corner, right?
But if you watch this and you hear the sound, because we were told to go up and jump on the second rope each one after another and work the crowd. And I knew that when I jumped up that I would get the reaction that over Lex. Because they've been pushing Lex for the last 8 months or whatever to be the new guy.
Yeah.
And I was still the main event, even though I wasn't champion anymore because Yoko was champion. But I think it was designed by Vince to whoever got the reaction would get the belt. And that's what it came down to.
I always wondered about that, if that was the case, because...
I didn't know. I didn't know till the next day that I was going to win the title. They told me the next morning in Stanford.
Welcome back to Legends and Champions. It's another big one. What a week we've had so far, talking not only about the 2022, what am I talking about? Not only talking about the 2005 Royal Rumble, Shane has been on talking about collecting wrestling videos and DVDs and reminiscing and sharing some memories there. And we've just heard it those exclusive comments from the Hitman Bret Hart relating to the 1994 Royal Rumble and that finish with the total package Lex Luger, made in the USA Lex Luger. My thanks go out to Mike McGuire for arranging that and for coming on the show to do the introductions. But now, it is time for us to talk Royal Rumble 2025. I know what you're thinking. What's going on? This is current product. You're talking retro wrestling. I am. But I also think that what a way to finish off this Royal Rumble month than by looking at the 2025 Royal Rumble. Now, I will be completely transparent with you. It's currently the 22nd of January. All right? Saturday night's main event hasn't even occurred yet. That happens this week. As we're putting this out, we will be going out before, obviously, the Royal Rumble takes place. So at the moment, there's not many matches announced, and actually, there's not a lot of entrants announced, but I'm going to do the best I can. For a fuller preview for the Royal Rumble, then obviously head over to the ACT on Saturday, who I'm sure will be covering what they think is going to be happening in the 2025 WWE Royal Rumble. And don't forget, you can watch it internationally live on Netflix from 1 a.m. UK time if you're here in the US, if you're here in the UK. You can watch it in Canada and internationally in select countries and select markets on Netflix, of course, on Peacock in the US. As we know, the Royal Rumble is going to be taking place at the Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. It has now been confirmed that next year's will be taking place in Saudi Arabia. But is it going to be 1 or 2 days? We're going to have to wait and see. And you heard my conversation with Joe Aguinaldo last week in respect of that. All right, so let's have a look at what's been announced so far. So we know as of this time, there are 3 matches signed. The first, obviously, is the 30-man Royal Rumble match for the World Championship shot at WrestleMania 41. The second match is the Women's Royal Rumble match for the winner to face the champion at WrestleMania 41. And the third one is the ladder match for the undisputed WWE Championship, where both Cody's undisputed title and the Legacy Winged Eagle, the belt that really should be the WWE title, will be suspended above the ring, and that will be Cody Rhodes facing off against Kevin Owens. Let's kick off with that match first of all, because the one thing that you can say since Saturday night's main event in December was they have built this beautifully. It was a great match at SNME. They've done a really nice build-up with Kevin Owens, this prize fighter looking deadly. He's looking the best and I've seen him in years. I love the fact that he's got the Winged Eagle. I love the fact that they brought it back and brought prominence. We know that Cody always wanted that to be the championship that he came out with. So is this a precursor to the Winged Eagle coming back full-time? I wholly hope it is, because they need to get rid of that shocking championship with the WWE logo on it. But regardless of that, we've had some amazing promos from Kevin Owens. We've had some great in-ring action from Kevin Owens in terms of Rey Mysterio a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown. This one, unfortunately, I don't see them doing a title switch. I kind of hope they would, because I think if anybody deserves it, it is Kevin Owens. But I think it will be Cody Rhodes going over and facing the winner of the Royal Rumble at WrestleMania 41. Now, there is an X Factor at play here, and that is the World Heavyweight Championship, because at the moment, they haven't announced a match for Gunther. We know that Saturday night's main event, recording later this week, he will be facing off against Jey Uso. Whoever loses that match, and I'm putting money on it now that it won't be Gunther, will be in the Royal Rumble, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So my prediction here is Cody Rhodes going over. It's going to be a great match. It could beat the Men's Royal Rumble in terms of match of the night. Now let's talk about the Women's Royal Rumble, because as of the 22nd of January, only 2 of the 30 entries have been announced. Nia Jax and Bayley. Now there are 28 more obviously going to be announced. And I would imagine that you've got people like Roxanne Perez will be coming in, Jordan Grace will be coming in, I would imagine Julia would be in, Kalani Perez from NXT would be in, Cora Jade would be in, Natalia would be in. I think some legends like Lita will be coming back. Trish may even come in. You've got some examples from TNA that could now make an appearance. Rosemary for one. Misha Slamovich could be one that could be coming in. But this Royal Rumble, in my opinion, will come down to two individuals. Charlotte Flair and the man Becky Lynch. Both of them are due to come back. We know that Becky Lynch has signed a new contract with the WWE, and we know Charlotte Flair is being promoted. So I reckon it will be one of those two in the final two position, and my pick is Becky Lynch. They are going to put a strap under her, and I think it will be Becky Lynch. The money on the match, it will be, in my opinion, it will be the rematch. Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley. That's who I think. Liv Morgan's a good shout. Liv Morgan could do it. And then you get the rematch again, but they're not going to pull the trigger on that because of the fact that they've just finished that feud on Raw premiere on Netflix. But Liv could challenge Tiffany Stratton on SmackDown for the Women's World Championship. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm still going with Becky Lynch to win the Royal Rumble. Now, the Men's Royal Rumble is slightly different because we've got LA Knight, John Cena, CM Punk, Jey Uso, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Rey Mysterio, Sami Zayn, all confirmed for the Rumble. Now, you've got to imagine Solo Sikoa will be in there. Tonga Fatu will be in there. You've got to imagine that Jimmy Uso's going to be in there. You've got to think that Bron Breakker is going to be in there. That Jimmy Uso will be in there. I think the loser of the WWE Championship match, whether or not that's Kevin Owens or Cody Rhodes, will be in the Royal Rumble. You've then got to look at NXT, and you've got to think about who from there will be making an appearance. All Ego Ethan Page would be a good shout. Joe Hendry would be a good shout. Could Nick Nemeth from TNA make an appearance in the Royal Rumble? He's teased it. Could someone like Bully Ray, who's going to be part of WWE LFG, make a guest spot in the Royal Rumble? Possibly. Could Randy Orton make his return to the WWE? Ultimately, I think this is going to come down to four people. Quite simply, Seth freaking Rollins, Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, and John Cena. If you push me to 6, I would add Roman Reigns and Dominic Mysterio. Ultimately, I think the winner of the Royal Rumble is already locked. John Cena. I don't want it to be Cena. I think that's too obvious. I literally think that's too obvious. And if they go down that route, I have a scary feeling he will be booed out of the building. Not because he's not a good worker, or not because it's something that you maybe don't want to see. It's because there's people who deserve it more than John Cena. Right? He's literally winning it because of the retirement tour. It's already been heavily rumoured he's going to WrestleMania to compete for the championship, to get that 17th title, to beat that record by the Nature Boy Ric Flair. They can do it a different way. They can get him to Elimination Chamber. He could win the Elimination Chamber. Don't take this away from a full-timer on the main roster. There's arguments for it to be CM Punk, to get his WrestleMania moment, to headline WrestleMania, to walk out as the World or the WWE Champion. There's an argument for Drew McIntyre to get his moment, bearing in mind that he got it in the pandemic era with no one in the arena. There is arguments for a lot of these individuals who deserve it far more than John Cena. Earlier on, you heard me say Jey Uso. If I had to put my hand on my heart and say right now, who do I want it to be? It would be main event Jey Uso. Yeet! Because he is on fire. They have put a rocket ship up him, and he is going, and he is so over with the crowd. Now, ultimately, I don't think, as of recording this, he will win the World Heavyweight Championship on Saturday night's main event. Gunther is too powerful, and I don't know where they go with that. I don't know who challenges Gunther at WrestleMania. If Jey Uso wins the Royal Rumble, you've got that rematch. And if this match on Saturday is as good as what we're expecting it to be, that is going to be a cracker of a headline at WrestleMania 41. John Cena can go into the Elimination Chamber in Canada. He can win that, and he can face off against Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania on night 2. You know it's going to be on night 2 because that's the headline night. Now, what else do we think is going to happen this Saturday at the Royal Rumble? There are rumours. Again, as of this time, nothing has been announced. There are rumours of a second Women's Championship match. It could be a Chelsea Green defence of the US Championship. And I wouldn't be against seeing her and Mission going at it one more time. Lyra Valkyria could also defend the Intercontinental Championship. And again, there is a massive part of me that would love to see Dakota Kai get that rematch and still compete in that 31-woman Royal Rumble. Is it an opportunity for Lyra Valkyria to face off against a veteran like Natalya? Could Lyra Valkyria defend it against someone like Nia Jax? Roxanne Perez? Could Julia make a debut? Ooh, could Nikita Lyons make a debut? Oh yeah. So there are a lot of options for what could happen. Could Rhea Ripley enter the Women's Royal Rumble? And could she put her Women's Championship on the line just like Roman Reigns did in the Men's Royal Rumble back in 2015? I think it was. Unlikely. I think you've got more chance of Dominic Mysterio winning the Royal Rumble than that happening. But never say never in the WWE. What is going to be here is that this year's Royal Rumble already is the most star-studded pay-per-view event in Rumble history, in my opinion, and one that I am eagerly looking forward to. And don't forget, all over the weekend on Celebrate Wrestling, we will be covering the Royal Rumble from the ACT guys, giving us the rundown of what's happened on Raw and SmackDown and NXT. Plus, I'm sure they're going to talk about the Rumble itself. To Mike giving you the review with the Yay Boo segment on Sunday on McGuire on Wrestling. And if you want to not miss any of those shows, you need to go to Celebrate Wrestling on your podcast provider and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the action, any of the shows, each and every week, right here on podcast. And really, that's it for me. I'm done for another week. Thank you for joining me, and thank you to all of my guests, Shane Poole, Mike McGuire, of course, and to the legendary Hitman Bret Hart. What do we got coming up next week on the show? Well, what I can guarantee you is that it's definitely not going to be Royal Rumble related. In fact, we are going to go back to 1991. It's a match between the US and Japan, two of the all-time greats. The Nature Boy Ric Flair, Tatsumi Fujinami. It's tag team action between Sting and the Total Package Lex Luger against the Steiners. It is Super Brawl 1 from WCW. We are going all the way back to 1991. Going to be talking about that event. Something different. Something non-Royal Rumble. And then after that, we have got some crackers coming up. No Way Out 2003. In Your House 6. In Your House Final 4. Hulkamania we're going to do a show on. We've got lots of things coming up right here on Legends and Champions over the next few weeks, leading us in to WrestleMania season. Thank you for joining us. As always, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us on this journey. I will see you next week. Until then, I've been Andy Evans. I will see you at the matches. So long. Bye-bye now.
This has been Legends and Champions with Andy Evans. Thank you for listening.